Test. All right. Good afternoon again, and we're coming back to you again. This is the apologist, and we're continuing our discussion of the doctrine of hell as eternal fire in reference to Revelations 20:10, the lake that burns with fire and brimstone. What we have set forth up to this point is that the impression of the Christian world about Revelation 2010 is that Revelation 2010 is the lake of fire that burns with fire and brimstone, which many have concluded quite regularly that it is the lake of fire that is the eternal hell that the unsaved and the wicked go to. And what we have set forth here is a question. Is that really what Revelation 20:10 is talking about? It doesn't seem so, and we're asking, and we're setting forth all of our reasons for believing that that is not hell as described by the Roman Catholics. It is not the beginning of eternity. In fact, that is not even a part of eternity. It is not a picture of eternity, because the eternal state will have nothing like that in it. But what we're trying to drive here, and the point that I'm presenting, is that the lake that burns with fire and brimstone is the end of all that was in Adam's world. It's the end of all that was in Adam's world that was a result of the curse. That's the reason why death is thrown in there, and Hades, and sometimes it's translated hell, death and hell, were thrown in there, and all kinds of sin was thrown in there. It is actually an incinerator that we burn up everything that is unlike God, and everything that is a result of the fall, and get rid of it, so that we can usher in, so that the new heaven and the new earth can be ushered in a taint-free world. And this subduing of all of this is the work of Jesus Christ, described by St. Paul in 1 Corinthians 15:24. Then when he shall put all things under his feet. It is the same thing that is described by Peter in 2 Peter, in 2 Peter. The same thing. When the earth shall be burned up with a fervent heat, and all of the things and wickedness shall be burned up in it. It is the same thing that's described in Revelation 20 and 10 by John, when he said they were cast into the lake. So this symbol of the annihilation is symbolic of the annihilation that shall be of everything that was cursed. And there will be none of that left over in the new heaven and the new earth. So, for those reasons, for that reason, that's one of the reasons why we don't believe that that is hell as the Catholics drew it up. As they drew it up when they received it from the pagan world, the doctrine in the suffering and torment in pits and dungeons, and is not. The pagans didn't call it hell. But it's not apostolic doctrine. It is definitely paganism. It was definitely before the church came, and it definitely was intermingled in the quote theology of the church by the pagans. When the church compromised, they took on so many of their doctrines, and this was one of them. And so we made a statement also that there is not one scripture in the Bible where the word hell was used that meant an eternal fire where the wicked go and burn forever and ever without relief. There's no context in the Bible where the word hell was put in the Bible, probably in the 1400s, that has that meaning. And, okay, of course, so then since there's no scripture in the Bible that has that meaning, then if we would check to confirm this, there is no prophet in the Old Testament who had been told that, or told Israel that. God told no prophet. God told no one in the Old Testament that they were going to burn in hell, or that men were going to burn in hell forever and ever and ever, burn in fire. There was nowhere in that doctrine is nowhere in the Old Testament, and it's nowhere in the New Testament. Now, the question comes now up: what do you mean the doctrine is not in the Bible? Why, Jesus said, used the word hell a number of times. Well, let me explain that to you. Where Jesus was quoted or misquoted as saying, using the word hell, I would like for you to know that in the original context of Jesus' speech, in the original scriptures, the word hell never came out of Jesus' mouth. The word hell is in no scripture that was written based upon what Jesus said. He never used the word hell. I don't even know if the word hell was out when Jesus was here on the earth. The word hell was added to the Bible because that was the impression that those in the Middle Ages and the early times wanted to give people the impression of hell, since the Catholics had backed themselves back up in a corner by receiving this doctrine from the pagans. They had to communicate it in some kind of way. So they take the scriptures where the word hell is nowhere in the Bible, and they take it and they insert it in the Bible with that connotation in mind. How did they do it? Well, the way they did it was they went through all of the passages in the Bible that talked about where the word Sheol was used, the word Hades was used, and the word Gehenna was used. And those are the words that were translated, and the word hell was put in the Bible in their place. The word hell was put in the Bible in their place. But if you take the word hell off of those scriptures and put the original text there, the original word, it would come out to be Gehenna, Sheol, and Hades. And Sheol and Hades have something to do with the grave, the death. It has something to do with the grave or death. Sheol in no case means a person burning in fire for eternity. Hades does not mean individuals burning in fire. It doesn't have that meaning, not in the least and in no context. So in whatever context the word Hades is in, whatever context the word Sheol is in, they do not have the context or the idea or the meaning of burning in eternal fire forever. Now, you can go through the scriptures. My lessons have to be short because a lot of people need them to be short because they're very busy and they don't. But you can go through the scriptures and look up where the word Hades is used and where the word Sheol is used, and see if you do find any passage where it is used that it means a burning in fire, an eternal damnation, or a lake of fire. You won't find any scripture, the word, in any context where it's used doesn't mean that. So, It is when they bag themselves in the corner by cutting this deal with the pagans, say, we'll take on that doctrine, but you have to become Christians and come under the kingdom and let the kingdom be one. And if you do that, then we're going to take on your doctrine of endless torment, and we're going to mix it in Christian doctrine. But in order for us to do that, we got to go find certain scriptures that sound like they're saying that, and we got to put the word hell in those scriptures. We got to put the word hell in those scriptures, and with that connotation in mind, with that connotation, in the suffering for sinners, in the suffering. And so that's what they did. When they was interpreting the Bibles, printing it, everywhere they saw Hades, they put down hell. Everywhere they saw Sheol, they put down hell. Every time they saw Gehenna, they put down hell. Now, the question is, how did they put down hell? Why did they pick those particular scriptures out and put hell there? Well, the reason why those particular scriptures were used is because they were scriptures that talked and used terms that could be made to believe they were talking about hell. Like the unquenchable fire that John the Baptist talked about. Unquenchable fire. This is unquenchable fire pertaining to the Jews and God's judgment upon them. It had nothing to do with the whole world that was lost. Unquenchable fires, where he talked about, and then the rich man and Lazarus, he talked about the flame. And so that flame was taken and dressed up to be hell. Because it said flame, and because they were trying to line every scripture up with Revelation 21:10. But I will tell you, I'm going to go through each one of those scriptures. But for now, you must realize that not a one of them were dealing with the hell idea that we've been passed down from the Catholics and the pagans. Not one of those scriptures has that connotation. Thank you very much, and we will go in our next lesson to study the scriptures, scripture in Mark where Jesus says, and the worm never dies, and the fire is unquenchable. And we'll study the rich man and Lazarus. He talked about comforting him from this flame. We'll talk about the hell that was prepared for the devil and his angels. We'll talk about these three topics when we come up with our next set of lessons. God bless you.